Okay. Hi, Ari. How are you? Welcome back.
Hey, good, Douglas. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. As we were talking about just before we got on, you were on the video show back in October of 2020, so it's been a bit over a year. We had just started the show in August of 2020, so you were one of the first
Oh, well,
guests. You were one of the first guests we had on the show, and
I'm honored.
you've come back, and we're going to talk about your book again. Your book is called Lay an Egg and Make Chicken Soup, which is a very funny title. And last time we talked about, kind of gave an overview of the book. So it's been a while. Why don't you give another overview of the book, just a quick one to give people an idea of what the book is about, and then we'll get into it a little bit.
Okay, well, time flies. I didn't realize it has been so long. So thanks for having me again. Uh, the book talks, and let me back off a little bit. The purpose or the background of the title is very often when you introduce something new, you have a chicken and an egg dilemma. Uh, should I spend 10,000? I have that idea, which is the egg. Okay, should I spend $10,000 on research if it's a good idea or not? And the dilemma is, you're not sure if it's worthwhile moving forward with this idea. So you need to research it a little bit further. But then the other side of the coin, why spend $10,000 on something you're not sure it's valuable? So that's a chicken and egg dilemma, and every new product or new service or innovation are facing the same dilemma. So that's where my title is coming from, and I take it to the next step, which is make a chicken soup. So chicken and egg, make a chicken soup. That's where the name is coming from. So the topic of the book, or the focus of the book, and the focus of my research and my teaching is commercializing innovation. Most of the literature about innovation, and by the way, most of the literature about innovation is focusing on venture or entrepreneurship, and usually the focus you'll find either how to come up with new ideas, which is called the buzzword is ideation. And the other type of books you'll find is how to raise money, how to knock on the VC's doors and make them interested in your idea. The focus of my book is how to execute on the idea. So I have the first chapter is the ideation part. I have a chapter about fundraising, but then 80% of the book is about how to execute on commercializing this new idea and make it a successful finish line, whatever that finish line for you is.
Well, there's sort of two parts to that I can see. Number one is like you said, you start with the egg, and you don't really know if your idea is good or not. I mean, even you can go back to the more famous ones like Steve Jobs back in the 70s. People said, well, why would anybody want a computer in their home? Right? And now look. So obviously he had a good idea, but nobody
Mhm.
knew it was a good idea at the time. So
Mhm, mhm.
that's,
Yes.
I think that's holds true for anyone who creates something different. The second part is the money. Now, would you recommend that people put their own money in? Because most people tend to want to have someone else assume the financial risk, and they go look for investors, and or they just don't have the money themselves and they've got to get it from somebody else. But let's say hypothetically, if you have the money, do you think that's a wise idea to put all of your own money into this idea that may or may not work?
So there is another egg
Isn't it? Yeah,
related metaphor. Don't put all your eggs in the same
in the
basket.
same basket,
It's
right?
it's different than the chicken and egg. I know many wealthy, individuals, entrepreneurs that they do have the money to invest in their own startup or their own idea, but they don't do it usually because you have to spread the risk and not put all your money in one basket, or don't put all your eggs in one basket. So even if you do have the money, yeah, it's very comfortable to continue, move forward, and keep all the equity for yourself in the new business. But if you really need a whole lot of money, it's better to partner with some additional financial partners. So once again, you don't want to put all your eggs in the same basket. Use the extra money to invest in other people's ideas or other people's businesses. So that's everything goes back to the egg.
So what made you write this book? Was there some particular catalyst that got you interested, or were you doing investing in various ideas yourself, or what were you doing before you wrote the book?
Yes and yes and yes. I think the book is a result of my 40 plus years career. So when I started as an engineer, working for a company called National Semiconductor, some of the old timers may remember them, we had a superior product. The R&D was above and beyond. We were 2 or 3 years ahead of Intel, 2 or 3 years ahead of Motorola, yet the company didn't do very well with this particular product because they did not execute on the commercialization, or we did not execute very well on the commercialization part. And that was my first lesson. Then I went, I was hired by Motorola later, a few years later. Motorola was exactly the opposite. They had okay products, but they had a phenomenal execution on the commercialization, anything from marketing to manufacturing, intellectual property, funding, technology, blah, 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 all the ingredients you need in a successful execution. Yes, a good product is one of the ingredients. It's not the only thing. And Motorola did phenomenally well on all the spectrum of the execution. So that was lesson learned number 2. I spent 20 years with Motorola, so it was more than one lesson, but you learn from, I learned from them that the execution is so important. And after that, more and more different startups and ventures that I was involved with, just repeat the same thing. In later years, I started to share this knowledge by mentoring young entrepreneurs, teaching the topic at the university, and just writing the book. Actually, I did not decide to write a book. It was a collection of papers I published over time. And at some point I said, okay, how I can put it all together and it could be a nice book. And that's what happened. So it was not a decision of a moment. It was a result of many other activities I had. And at some point I glued everything together into a book.
Okay, so this was like a compilation of 20 years of work and observation and research and everything else. Yeah.
Yes.
Is there one particular thing that you saw over and over, like a mistake that people were making? Was there one particular thing or many? Can you give us an example?
Yeah, if you look at the big picture,
yeah,
most innovators don't usually will not see all the obstacles they are facing just because they don't have the experience to foresee all the speed bumps. So in military slang, we call it, they don't see where the landmines are buried. So from a big picture, it's all the executions. Normally the innovators are younger people, and by that lacking the experience of the execution part. As you age, you lose some of the innovative mind, but you gain experience. So there is maybe a best strategy is to mix these two attributes of age differences between the younger innovators and the more mature execution. One perfect example, there was a study done with paper clips. I use it with my students a lot now. So you give people paper clips and you tell them, okay, what can you do with paper clips? And the results are astonishing. The kids younger than 10 years old come up with hundreds of things you can do with paper clips. Adults, in a good day, they can come up with 10 or 15 ideas of what to do with paper clips. And that's an example of, at a young age, people or kids, they don't have a solid box that limit thinking. So they are very creative at this young age. As you get older, you kind of box yourself by society, by your employers, by whatever, your family, to think in a certain way. So that's an example of age diversity. And I talk a lot, by the way, I talk a lot in the book about the importance of diversity in business success. So this is one example of age diversity. There is a fable, famous fable that I used recently. It's not, I didn't mention it in the book. So there was the king was one of his hobbies was falcon hunting. So he purchased a falcon that was very promising. It's a dynasty of very successful falcons. And the falcon refused to fly, sitting there and refused to fly. So the king hired all the best falcon trainers in the whole world, and they tried to make the falcon fly. The falcon refused to fly. And the king became very sad. He walks in the yard, and his yard worker sees the king very sad. He said, "Your Majesty, why are you so sad?" And the king told him about the falcon that refused to fly. So the yard worker, Jimmy, his name Jimmy, said, I think I have an idea. Go back home, drink a glass of wine, eat good dinner, go to sleep, and we'll talk tomorrow morning. So the king went back home, had a couple of glasses of wine, had a good dinner, went to sleep, woke up in the morning, opened the window, and he sees the falcon is flying. So he rushed outside, found Jimmy and asked Jimmy, how did you do that? And Jimmy said, very simple, I cut the branch that the falcon was standing on or sitting on. So the moral of the story is sometimes you need diverse backgrounds for people from different industries. No matter what your industry is, if you bring over to the conversation people from other industries, they will be more creative in thinking out of the box of your specific industry, because your box is not their box. They have a different box and they're different industries. So,
well, that's true. Yeah.
The combined boxes give you, as a team, the combined boxes gives you a much bigger box, and therefore the team will be more creative.
I also think that some people, they just need to get out of their comfort zone.
Yeah,
I think that was probably, while you were telling that story, that was the moral that I got out of it, was he cut the branch because the bird was getting too comfortable on that particular branch and needed to go somewhere else.
That's the traditional conclusion of this fable is what you just said, get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
I came up with a different conclusion. to show that if you come from a different industry, you may have totally out of the box ideas on how to solve that problem.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. We just kind of blew right through this interview. So we do have to wind it down. Do you have a website, personal one or one for the book?
Yes, so the book you can find on Amazon, and Lay an Egg and Make Chicken Soup. Sometime it will come up in among the cookbooks. So it's not a cookbook, but it's a cookbook for business. It's not a cookbook for how to make chicken soup. The website for my publications and what have you is cxo360.net. Make sure you use the letter O in CXO and the number 0 in 360.net.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for coming back on the show, and it's always nice to see you. Best of luck. I hope things continue to go well for you and into the